Hey everybody, this is Johnny Five Pizza Guy. Today we have another interview, this time with Charles McCarthy, who is a retired MMA fighter and now, as of now, owns a gym.
Hi, how you doing, Johnny? Thanks for having me.
B flat, no fidgeting. There you go.
Alright. Hey everybody, this is Johnny Five Pizza Guy. Today we have another interview, this time with Charles McCarthy, who is a retired MMA fighter in his 20s. He used to fight. He now owns a gym. So,
Hey, Johnny, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
I'm great. Thank you. So, who is Charles McCarthy?
Oh, good question. I am a retired UFC fighter. I started fighting I started training when I was 19. I had my first fight when I was in my 20s, and then turned professional, I think around 22 years old. Then I'd won already a bunch of jujitsu tournaments and stuff leading up to that. And once I started training, though, like my goal was always to fight, not to do jujitsu tournaments. So once I felt like I was pretty good at jujitsu and I was winning everything I entered, I went into MMA. I started training Muay Thai kickboxing. And I think I was in UFC by the time I was 23 or 24. Um, and then I also did their Ultimate Fighter show. My last fight was against Michael Bisping. And then after that, I retired from MMA around 27. I did like the Jiu-Jitsu World Championships that I placed in around 29. And I was already open my first gym somewhere around 26, 27. So right before my last two fights, I opened my gym. And yeah, back then it was like 2007. The gyms were like a very strange thing. Like people would come in, nobody knew what it was that we were doing, and everyone was used to like karate. When I was growing up, everything was karate and taekwondo. So like mixed martial arts and Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu was so foreign to everybody. And it was a struggle running a gym back then because anybody that came in, I had to explain to them what we did. I had to teach it to them. Everyone thought we were crazy. We probably were a little bit. Um, and I built up some really good fighters, Charles Rosa and Cole Miller and some other top fighters. But I really had an itch for managing fighters. So I started managing UFC fighters around that time. And I did that for several years and managed some of the top fighters in the world at the time. And the further I got away from the gym, the more I realized how much I missed it. So I refocused all my energy and I started back building what now is American Combat Gym. And we are located in Deerfield Beach. And we train everybody, whether you're a professional fighter or starting on your first day, we're the best place for you to come and train.
Thank you very much for that. Next up, did you know when you were a kid that you wanted to become a pro fighter?
I didn't know that I wanted to be a UFC fighter because UFC started when I was around 13, but I'd grown up watching Mike Tyson fight in the 80s. I was born in 1980, and so as young as I can remember, we were watching Mike Tyson pay-per-views at my house. And I just was enamored with everything that came with it. I really found him very interesting. I related a lot to the same things I read about him in his book. And so once I started being old enough to do it, I started setting up like fights in my front yard. We started inviting all the neighborhood kids over, and we would beat each other up in the front yard of my house. And we did that for a long time. And then I didn't really think of it at the time like it was going to be like a fight career or anything like that. It was like fun things. Like some kids go play football, they don't think they're going to be a pro football player, they just play football. That's what I was doing with fighting. And then somewhere along the way, UFC started becoming actually a really viable thing. And so I started training for it and immediately knew that was something I wanted to do.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So going back to the last question, who were some of the pro fighters that you were training?
I trained Cole Miller was one of my first guys that I got into the UFC. He ended up doing, I think, 22 fights in the UFC. I've worked with some amazing people like Todd Duffy. I've worked with Forrest Griffin. I've worked with Rashad Evans. I've worked with Charles Rosa. I've got a new top talent right now, Lucas Rosa, who's Charles's little brother, who's now top amateur in the country, making his pro debut. And yeah, I've been very fortunate to get to work with some really great fighters. Like when I was managing, I managed Amanda Nunes, who was the top woman fighter in the world for a long time. And I've worked with some amazing people that really everybody that you work with, they change your life a little bit. They touch you in a way where you say, okay, this person brings this to my life and it opened up this perspective, you know?
It's very interesting. What kinds of foods do you eat when you're training?
I try to keep things really simple. Try to eat whole foods. I try to reduce any grains, rice, carbohydrates, gluten out of my diet, and I focus on like high protein, like chicken or beef. Sometimes I'll do turkey and or fish, and then I do leafy greens, fruit smoothies, things like that.
Now that's awesome. So, what motivated you to? Oh wait, that's the wrong question. How many times a week does a pro fighter have to train?
You're looking at 11 sessions a week. So like you'd figure you're going to do two a day through the weekdays, and then a session on the weekend. Each session is going to be about 2 to 2.5 hours, and you'll put some runs in there, you know, some weight training or strength conditioning mixed in with that. So you're looking at somewhere around 25, 27 hours a week.
Wow, that's a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a full-time job for sure. The way you got to think of it is like if you're not training right now, the guy that you're fighting is. And you don't want that. You don't want that guy to be getting better while you're not doing anything. So if you have energy, you're working on getting better all the time.
Got it. So, what made it? No, what motivated you to become a pro fighter?
I was really motivated by the early UFCs. Hoist Gracie and Dan Severn really motivated me a lot. I like the idea of the scientific and technical aspect of Hoist Gracie, where he was a much smaller guy and he was using leverage and knowledge of skills to outsmart and finish off way bigger, more athletic people. And you know, I was only 13, so I love the idea of like being smaller than people and being able to beat them up. So then Dan Severn came out in UFC 5 and he just started dominating everybody. And he was a really big, powerful wrestler. And so I go, if I could combine the skill sets between these two, like a powerful, strong athleticism mixed with like scientific skills-based fighting, that I felt like I could really, I really enjoyed it and it motivated me to think that I could do it.
Hmm, that's sense. Did you deal with bullies as a kid?
You know, I think everybody does to some degree deal with bullies. Like when you're a kid, there's always bigger kids than you. So anytime there's bigger kids than you, there's bigger kids who have issues at home and they don't know how to properly treat people, or they have self-esteem issues and they end up taking it out on somebody else. And so definitely I experienced that several times in my life growing up. And they were very memorable. I remember them to this day, some of those experiences. And I would say that life is was a little bit more simple back then, because you would maybe deal with a bully at school and then you'd go home and you wouldn't have to deal with it anymore until you went back to school. Whereas now I feel like kids are connected all the time. So their friends group, their circle of friends, their school group, everything, it follows them home, and they're on TikTok with it and Instagram with it. So I don't know that I could relate specifically towards a kid today who's going through that. I would imagine it would be much tougher. Um, but the one thing that I realized at some point was it wasn't me. Like there was nothing deficient in me that was causing that experience. It was usually a deficiency in the person who's doing the bullying. And so it's important that you speak up and speak out about it instead of internalizing it and trying to make sense of it, because there's nothing that you can do that's going to make sense of it. You need to alert somebody that can help you resolve the situation.
What was your best experience as an MMA fighter?
Um, it's a tough question because I've had so many great experiences. I really enjoyed the whole thing. Um, I really I remember my last fight really taking it all in for the first time. Like I knew that was probably going to be my last one, and I remember walking through the arena, walking out to the fight, looking up at the fans, feeling the energy, and I think that was the most special moment for me right when I walked out to the cage and like took it all in on my last fight.
Hmm. Okay. So, was it a dream to open your gym?
Yeah, I would say so. It was the latest gym that I've been running now. I started when I was like 39 or 40, and at that age, you can really appreciate things because you've gone through so many ups and downs in life, and you start really chasing after the things that make you happy. So the gym for me was a real passion project, and it's first time I've ever worked so much and never felt like I was working.
Got it. Got it. Why did you open your gym?
I have a desire somewhere in me to help people live happier, better lives. And this is the tool that I use to be able to do that. For some reason, and I'm not exactly sure why, I get a tremendous amount of personal reward by watching people better their lives and having some part to play in it. I don't need credit. I don't want credit. But what I want is to see it happen. I love watching people evolve into their best version of themselves. And so I get to see that every day. I see people walk in every day and they work towards different goals. Everybody's training for different reasons. Some people it's for weight loss, some people it's self confidence, some people because they are looking for new friends groups. Some people are looking for all types of stuff. And it's amazing to find something that's like an oasis of happiness for all these different things and get to be able to provide that for people.
Got it. Um, so what was one of like the best things that hmm, how do I put this in words? How would you so you said you like watching people grow into a better version of themselves. What was one
Yeah.
of your favorite people to say, like, I really enjoy training this person?
I've got a couple people that really meant a lot to me along the way. Everyone really means a lot to me, but like some people I watched go from the point where it looked like there was no way for them to better their lives, like they had almost given up on themselves, and watch them grow into amazing people. One of them was a gentleman by the name of Charles Rosa. He's fought in the UFC for 11 years, very accomplished guy. But when I met him, he was moved down to Florida. He was in drug rehabilitation for like the 10th time. He had lost his two older brothers to drug overdose. And I think that he never really expected much out of life. And yeah, I don't know why I had such a strong attachment to him. And every day I would make sure he was doing the right thing and he was committed to doing the right thing. And I watched him go from this um, 20, low 20-year-old kid who had no goals, like no objectives in life, to becoming one of the top athletes in his sport. in the world and making a bunch of money along the way, but more so really bettering himself as a human being, treating people better, treating his family better, staying clean and sober, living a great life, and then most importantly, helping others along the way. And what I found is people that have the biggest struggles get the most out of providing help for others. So I think it's an important thing for everybody to take in, look around, assess all the people in our lives that could use a hand and be willing to provide it when needed.
That's a very inspiring story from Charles Rosa. What's
Thanks,
next?
John.
Hmm. Have you ever been injured when fighting?
Yeah, injuries are something that come with the game. So I had my second to last fight while I was training for it. I tore my ACL, LCL, and meniscus in my knee, and that one I needed surgery for. I've torn like my AC joint in my shoulder, but all the rest of my other stuff was non-surgical. Um, and it's weird, like yeah, I probably have had dozens of injuries. I don't even think about them though, because when I get injured, the only thing I think about is I go, does it require surgery or not? And if it doesn't, then it's going to be 6 weeks. So how do I train and avoid re-injuring the injury? So I just come up with new creative ways of training so that I'm focused on new things that I wouldn't normally do and don't put stress on wherever the injury's at.
Got it. Hmm. Who did you look up to growing up and why?
I went through a lot of different phases. When I was very little, I really looked up to Mike Tyson. He was like the Conor McGregor of our day, like he was so amazing in that he overperformed every time. He was a game day guy. He pushed himself to the limits, and he came up from a broken home, broken family, um, out of poverty, and built himself into one of the wealthiest people or wealthiest athletes in the world. So that was incredibly inspiring to me. And as I started getting older, I started seeing people like Hoist Gracie was incredibly inspiring to me. He's first real Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu hero that went in and just dominated in MMA using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He had a brother, Rickson Gracie, I was a big fan of also. Dan Severn, I was a big fan of. Um, Don Fry was a real motivator for me to round out my whole game. He was a great wrestler, had a ground game, had boxing. Randy Couture, who was one of the great champions that I got to train with at one point in my career, he was like a great human being on top of having all the skills. And so as I kept evolving who were my heroes at the time, I started adding to the bank, like what are the important qualities of somebody to be admired? So at first it was just like skill and power. And then it became more evolving into somebody that really could be well-rounded, and then evolved more into somebody who is an actual well-rounded, deep human being who is focused on helping others.
Pause for a second there. I got kind of just got lost.
You're good. Hey, I'm rambling. Go ahead. Where are we
Good
at?
storyteller. Um, what was your favorite food growing up?
My favorite food? Uh, Pizza and burgers always. It hasn't changed. Throw mac and
Yeah.
cheese in there, and I'm having a great day.
Mm. Yeah, as long as it's my cheat day, yeah. Sometimes I ask for pizza.
Pizza is definitely my preferred cheat meal, but there's something to be valued in the discipline of like staying and eating clean most of the time, and then you can really appreciate when you get that cheat meal.
Yeah, yeah. What was your favorite? Oh wait, I just said that. Hold on. Scratch that out. What genre of music do you like?
I'm pretty open to all music. I grew up listening to a lot of rap music, some heavy metal, and it's evolved a lot now where I'm listening to like all kinds of stuff like Adele. I love country music and rap music, and there's very little music I don't enjoy, even classical music. I love training classical music.
I like classical. Like some people are just like, why? Why do you like that? You're not from the 1800s, but it's like I still like it.
And what it does is it creates an environment where your brain and your thoughts can be active, and it's real thinking music. Like you can put that on and do real deep thought. It's a great thing, and so for jiu-jitsu it's a wonderful thing, classical music.
Hmm. Yeah. How many countries have you visited, and which was your favorite and why?
I've been to about a dozen countries. Most of the time I've traveled, it's been related to going to fights. You know, I'll have people fighting in Japan or Sweden. Those are two of my absolute favorites. Um, I do enjoy Mexico. Mexico is awesome. Dominican Republic was very nice. I've been out to the Middle East. I thought that was quite cool. I was out in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi has like jujitsu stadiums. It's a very unique place. Um, and they've all been great, but I would say, and even Canada was a beautiful place. I really, though, loved Sweden. Sweden was amazing.
Hmm. Okay. Sweden. How many countries have you been? Wait, that's that. See, this is why I scratch it out. All right. Do you have any regrets as an MMA pro fighter?
Um, I don't know that regrets would be it. Like I could definitely have changed things and bettered the outcome of everything in retrospect, but regret's a strong word because you just work with the information you have at the time. And as we get older and we evolve more and we get more data and information, we can look back on it and change. You know, if I had changed this, then things could have been different. But I've been able to utilize all those data points and processes to better my next generations of fighters. So each generation of fighters I build are better than the last generation. And so that helps me limit the idea of regret. I'm very satisfied with what I've done in my life. And I always set out to be the best at everything I do. But I also know it's unrealistic that you're going to be the best at absolutely everything. But my theory is that if you always set out to be the best, you could settle at second or third place. But if you were shooting for second place, you're going to be in last place. So I always try to be the best at everything. And if I come up short somewhere, as long as I know I put absolutely everything I had into it, and I'm always working to analyze where things failed and how to improve on those things, I generally don't ever have regrets.
Hmm. Okay. Next up, what are some things that you love about your profession?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. I really love meeting new people all the time and seeing them find the magic when they're training, like whether they love boxing or kickboxing or jujitsu, and they start doing it and they start appreciating the techniques and seeing how this can lead into that and this can lead into that. And then I see them every day and they're smiling and happy and improving and getting better. That's definitely my favorite part.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be one of my favorites too. So, finally, do you have a message for the world?
My message for the world is that they should be tuning in and watching out for Johnny Five Pizza Guy, next up and coming YouTube star.
Thank you. Okay. And that is it. Thank you very much for your time, Charles.
Thanks so much, Johnny. I look forward to the interview, and I look forward to watching you evolve yourself into the best version of yourself.
All right, so you got to redo the. Okay, so thank you for your time, Charles.
Thank you so much, Johnny. I look forward to watching it and seeing you keep evolving into the best version of yourself.
Thank you very much. See you next time, Coach.
See you then, Johnny.